Welcome to Rainbow Soul Vodcast, where our Soulstrology comes forward to help you manage your everyday life, with forecasts and deep dives on natal charts and queer perspectives on the planets, transits, and more. A group discussion about upcoming transits with tips on how to read these transits in your own chart. Hollis offers years of wisdom and natal chart knowledge with Bright Hawk's positive perspective and Lacrosse's inquiry. We offer the complete queer astrology experience. Welcome to Rainbow Soul. Please help us by subscribing, sharing, and commenting and reviewing. You can also learn where else Rainbow Soul is offered on our website at rainbowsoul.show.
Welcome to Rainbow Soul Soulstrology Forecast for April 3rd to the 9th. I know my dates, I swear I do. I know what today is. Wait a minute, no. I'm Hollis Taylor. I'm one of your astrologers here today. And you can learn all about me or get a natal reading or join one of my astrology classes at divineandrogen.com.
Well, hey there. I'm Bright Hawk. I'm a musician, astrologer, storyteller, author of The Dancing Hippo, about a hippo who loves to dance under the moon, especially the full moon. We're going to talk about the full moon this week. If you want to get my book or learn more about me, brighthawkproductions.com. The link is in the description below.
I'm Lacrosse Ortiz.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Lacrosse Ortiz. I just kind of sit here, learn along with what's going on, trying to learn the astrology. Just a jack of all trades, master of none. You can find me on well, no, not on YouTube, on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. I'm still trying to work on my TikTok, so be patient. Yeah.
And you do amazing. You do bring the animal totems in, which I appreciate.
Thank you very much for
and
adding
you
that.
also do you also have a really cool tarot book that you guys can find out about in the description. And so I'm grateful that we have you with us, Lacrosse, because hopefully you can at least help us be more grounded and help us do this process. And also, I wanted to also announce to the group that we're doing a special retreat called the Mystic Circle. You can find out about it, mysticscircle.com. It's an alchemical ceremonial experience, fire circle type of thing. So if you're interested in coming and dancing in the light at high altitude, check it out, mysticscircle.com. Okay. So I'm going to encourage everybody to take a deep breath. Put your feet on the floor. Take a deep breath. And blow out. Until you can't blow out anymore. And maybe do that a few times while we settle into our seats. And I invite you to find yourself under a beautiful moonlit sky with a beautiful full moon shining. And you know, when you're looking at the full moon, you can't see a whole lot around it because it lights up so brightly. But as you turn away from the moon, you can see more and more in the sky. And you start to notice a star, lots of stars, but this particular star doesn't twinkle the way the others do. And instead, as you start to focus on it, you begin to notice that it has a little bit of a red tint to the light. And as you focus on it more, it begins to pull itself closer to you, moving closer to your third eye. And as this planet pulls out of the universe and pulls into your third eye, it begins to give you a sense that it is planet Mars. And Mars is so fast, fast like fire. Like when something lights up very quickly. And it feels warm and hot. And you get the sense from Mars that it tends to move things along. We can be grateful for the way it pushes things forward. It pulls us forward sometimes, kicking and screaming, but pulling us none the same. And we can feel it pulling us. Sometimes you might feel it behind you, pushing you along from thing to thing. And as you feel the run of Mars, you can also feel how sometimes it brings aggression. And sometimes when you're fast, you might come across as aggressive, assertive. Sometimes when we're going too fast, we can even create discourse or fighting or an argument. The funny thing about Mars is that its deepest lesson is to learn how to slow down. And that's the message it carries. It teaches us to take a deep breath. And when we're running along from thing to thing, taking care of this and that we can take a deep breath. Slow down. Maybe take that 2 minutes to sit down and be quiet. Take a deep breath and slow down. Maybe not drive so fast. Maybe take that moment to wear the safety equipment that keeps us safe, even though it takes an extra minute, right? And that's what Mars does. It teaches us to slow down. Back up from Mars and we feel it loosen its energies from around us and pull back, and it pulls itself back up into the sky. We can smile in knowing what Mars' true message is. pause before we engage in that argument. What a priceless gift. And as you come back into that full moon, watery energy of the moon, you can feel that soothing, cooling touch of the moon. And come back into your body, coming back into your presence. Wiggle your toes. Roll your shoulders and your neck. Come back into your body in the here and now. Well done. Thank you, Bright Hawk.
Always a pleasure.
We appreciate you. I appreciate what everybody brings. I feel like the diversity of the three of us I think it's beautiful. I think we all bring diversity. I think that's a gift to anything. All right, my friends, let's take a look at this week's charts. Try to kind of break it down a little bit for y'all. Hopefully. Okay. Okay.
Well, the big headline of the week, while you get that squared away, is that we have a full moon on the 6th, on Thursday. And that's, of course, going to be the full moon in Libra. And yeah, there's a lot going on at the beginning of the week with the moon. The moon is like in 14 aspects. When you start the week, it's a waxing gibbous moon. When we start the week on Monday, on Moon Day, boy, we have moon in Virgo, which let's just talk about that for a hot second. The moon in Virgo is, a watery moon, emotional moon, right? Meets airy, intelligent, or I guess just not airy, earthy is what I should be saying with Virgo. Practical intelligence is what we call the moon in Virgo. Very practical, very intelligent, very capable of seeing a lot of the big picture and all the details at the same time. Meticulous, industrious, steadfast, responsible. Virgo's very, intellectual in that regard. And the moon in Virgo can be on the, we like to talk about both sides. Can make you feel critical, little high strung, maybe standoffish. Some moon in Virgos could be argumentative. And, sometimes there's a tendency for a moon in Virgo to be a hypochondriac. Just going to say the full range. But the main thing I would say about a moon in Virgo is practical intelligence, a thoughtful approach to life, for sure. And it's aspecting, which means having conversations with just about everything else in the sky. It's in 14 aspects. So there's a grand trine, there's a cradle, there's multiple T-squares, there's a sextile with Pallas. It's opposite Neptune for several days. There's a trine with Uranus, a trine with Juno, a trine with Venus, and a square to Pluto. So a lot of energy. No matter what you do or don't know about the things I just said, what you can know immediately is, wow, that's a lot of energy. The moon's talking to a lot of folks.
Yeah, yeah. And the funny thing is that, you have the moon, and the moon represents our emotions, right?
Mm-hmm.
It represents our emotions and our intuition and the flow of our emotions. And the interesting thing is that there is a kite. First of all, there's a grand trine in water,
Mm-hmm.
which tells us right away that that is a blessing in the way our emotions move through things. So even though there's a lot of energy, you might still feel yourself having awakenings or feeling like having aha moments and having like it's just sort of emotional awareness. Like suddenly you might be like, that's why I do that. Ah, shit. Okay. Or something like that. Especially with the Grand Trine in water. It's Saturn in Pisces, Mars in Cancer, and the South Node in Scorpio. So it doesn't even involve the moon, but the moon, with it being in trine to all those other things, all the other ones, what was it? Uranus, Juno, Venus, and Pluto. Oh, it looks like it's in a Grand Trine the next day,
Right.
but it's in a Grand Trine it's not in the Grand Trine, the first Grand Trine to open up the week.
Right.
So that's very interesting, because one of the things that I've learned about astrology is when the same theme shows up in more than one way, that's what's going to be happening. So if you start, like, it's even the chances of more people having that experience is greater. So I'm going to say that in the beginning of the week, the third in particular, if you start having awakenings or emotional awareness or emotional upgrades, you're right on point. That's pretty much what's in the sky. That's really what's happening. And the grand trine that you see here is sort of that blue, dark blue triangle in the middle of the circle there. And you can see that there's also two sort of smaller triangle pieces that have like a star symbol on them instead of a triangle symbol. Those are sextiles, and that completes the kite. You can kind of see a dark blue kite here, right? That's kind of made, if you follow the blue lines,
Right.
you can kind of see it. And the kite itself is saying, take off with us. Don't pull too hard on the one side. With a kite, you want to have all your strings attached to all the ends, right? And then one string in the middle. You want to be pulling on the string in the middle that pulls on all of them. So then that's going to mean that you're going to want to recognize where you came from emotionally. What transformations have you come from? What transformations are you in now? And what systems do you know you have to apply to yourself? Like, I really have to get a better habit of taking care of my yoga or eating right or whatever it is that you're trying to work on with yourself, along with taking that action, actually doing that action, tapping into Mars in Cancer, even if it is in water, and then also talking about it, but not spending too much time talking about it. So if you focus on too much of what you messed up in the past, or you focus too much on the system, or focus too much on action, or any one of those things I just listed, your kite will crash. You want to get a nice balance between them all and try to get them all going at the same time. So I would say focus on, okay, I've learned what I had to in the past. I'm going to apply this new system, and now I'm going to go forward with it, and maybe make a verbal like commitment to somebody else, like to your friend or your partner or a workout buddy, or just somebody you work with, and say, I am going to try to do this every day, right? Okay. Or I'm going to try to journal every night, even if you just make that commitment to yourself or to your journal. I've done that kind of thing. I promise to do this to you. So that would be my suggestion, is that you kind of try to balance it all together.
I like the way you described that way to anchor it by writing it down or telling someone, because that's how a kite works, right? There's a story about the father and son flying a kite, And at a certain point, the boy thinks that, oh, the string, the kite is pulling so hard on the string. Dad, let's cut the string and let the kite go. Let the kite be free. So the dad goes, oh, okay. He cuts the string, and what happens? Of course, the kite flies off, and then it eventually falls to the ground and breaks. And the boy learned a powerful lesson, which was when you anchor the string, when you hold the string, that's what makes it work.
Right.
And that's what, it's not just a metaphor. It really does. That's what makes it work. And that's what is what will make the kite take off and have lift. Which is kind of neat, because the moon moves into it starts off with a bunch of trines, and then it squares Mars on Tuesday, but there's still that grand trine with the moon with Venus and Pluto. So there you go again. Venus is in there at home in Taurus, and Pluto is now in Aquarius. And so there's again a grand trine. And then when you add Pallas Athena, you have the kite. So, and you can also see down at the bottom there where the moon is, everybody kind of recognizes the moon. Well, it's about to conjunct Ceres.
Yeah, and that'll probably be on that day, right? Or
the next day.
Okay, the very next day. And the thing is that while the moon is conjunct Ceres, what Ceres is about nurturing, motherhood, and moms.
And what you bring forth, what you've birthed into this world. It doesn't have to be a child, if you've birthed a project or a, whatever.
Okay. And it's in opposition to Neptune. Check it out. There's like a red line that goes right up to Neptune in Pisces. And so that's going to be, we may not be seeing things clearly. We may not be completely aware of things. And with that opposition with the moon there, now it's going to add that intuitive, unconscious, dreamy, but it could also add that unconscious behavior, which is what I immediately think of with Neptune in opposition, because opposition is usually something that's next to impossible to overcome. Okay, but you can try to find a balance with them. So if you find yourself unconsciously doing something, just let it go right away and move into the healthier behavior. So that's going to be more likely what's going to happen, is like all of a sudden you're going to be like, why am I doing this? Like it's an unconscious thing. And then because that's the moon, the moon brings a lot of that energy with Ceres. And then to add Neptune, which can sometimes be unconscious too.
Right.
And I'm like, oh man. So then you'll probably recognize it at some point. You'll become aware of it, and then you can just change it right away. And that's, it's like one day recognizing, you get up in the morning, you go, gosh, I don't think I brushed my teeth last night. Right? Okay. And that might happen, right? But you don't not brush your teeth the next night. You don't give up on your teeth forever and ever because of that, do you? Most of us would go back to brushing our teeth right away. Maybe we would brush them right away when we get up in the morning and go, oh, let me just change that right now. Right? Okay. And then some people will be like, okay, I'll make sure I brush my teeth when it's time again. Okay. So just, so that's my big help through these. The only other thing about the 3rd that I think carries on through most of the week is Pluto is going to square Mercury. So Mercury moves pretty quick. I'm pretty sure this square will end by the end of the week. But Pluto squaring Mercury is kind of like, you might say some things that somehow could have some power dynamics. There could be a little bit of a power exchange. You could become aware of someone else's power dynamics where you're like, are they manipulating me? Okay, especially verbal, especially in communication. Okay. So if that happens, just be aware of it, stay alive to it. And that might have a lot to do with the emotional awakening, becoming aware of someone's manipulative behavior, or something like that, or some sort of power dynamic that's going on between you and another person, especially with Pluto square.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And then this is the chart for April 5th. So,
Well, so what starts to happen, and I have to say, I'm not feeling that this is going to be a particularly easy full moon because there are so many squares, and you see how many things the moon is opposing. So, obviously, to have a full moon, the sun opposes the moon, right? They're on 180 degrees opposite each other, duh. But you see all of the things on the other side of the sun there at the top of the chart, and each one of those things is going to eventually be in opposition to the moon. So when the full moon does arrive, and I guess Passover is that night of the Saturday, the sundown on the 5th, while the moon is in Libra, and you end up with a multi-planet square, a square to Pluto, your opposite Jupiter, your opposite Vesta, and then we'll just go on down the line. It gets easier, or let's say more faded, on Friday, because then the moon is in a yod, and the energy is pointing at the moon. Venus and Neptune is the base, and the yod is pointing at the moon. So when the moon goes into Libra, we know it's all about artistic beauty, yumminess, and taking care of the, how does everybody feel? How's the room? It's adaptive, it's creative, it's charming, it's great networker, great diplomat skills in Moon in Libra. Good natured and idealistic. And, on the challenge side, there could be some self indulgence or an inability to make a decision because you got to take in everything. There could be some dependence, some frivolousness, or things of that nature. That's the far side. But really, what I like to say about the moon in Libra is artistic beauty, and that what feels good, because you've got the moon amplifying what feels good. So all those oppositions, trust your gut, is what I'm going to say. And if a little voice goes off in your head that says, why don't you take a minute and breathe? Why don't you walk away from this for a second? Why don't you go get yourself a glass of water? Whatever it is, it's important to take a minute if that's what you need to do. Yeah. So
well,
there you go.
It's interesting. That's on the 6th, right? That whole thing starts on the 6th.
Yeah.
Because this is a chart for the 5th, and it will continue on after the 5th for a few days. The Grand Cross. Okay. And what's a Grand Cross? Well, can't you see those big red lines crossing each other there? That's a Grand Cross. Okay. And so Pluto is in Aquarius, of course, and it's in opposition. Now, remember I said about oppositions, they almost always happen, but it's a matter of how resilient you are. It's a matter of how you react to that opposition. You can let it consume your entire day, or you can just move past it, okay? So Pluto is in opposition to Lilith, and Lilith is about your independence. It can also be about your sexuality, but usually it's about your independence, especially feminism and things like that, with a power dynamic, and that's Pluto. Pluto is a power dynamic. It can be about control, power, death, and transformation, okay? And I feel like with that dynamic there, and then you have the south node down there in the bottom. See that south node in Scorpio? It's the one that looks like a little horseshoe, okay? It's the one that's upward, right? It looks like you could pour something into it. So that's in Scorpio, and you can follow the red line straight across. If you're not sure, you can always look at the little chart down at the bottom and find those symbols. And what you figure out is that the south node is in opposition, which is the red line with two little dots. That's how it's represented. And it's in opposition to Mercury. So that's about how we talk. That's about how we communicate with one another. And so if you find yourself saying old things or being in old habits, communicating something, maybe suddenly going back to codependent behaviors because you're in a power dynamic with someone else, okay? I feel like they'll be related. These two oppositions will be related. So like you find yourself in a power dynamic with some person, and then you find yourself back into a codependent behavior, and you're like, wait a minute. And so when I find myself in codependent behaviors, I try to remove myself from the situation and ask myself a few questions. Am I doing this because I'm afraid of what happens if I don't do it? Or am I doing this because I think I should, even though the other person has given me no reason to think that? So there's usually one of two answers. So either number one, you're afraid that if you don't do this codependent behavior, that this person's reaction is going to be extreme. Maybe they're going to get mad at you. Maybe they're going to cut you off or not love you anymore. Or maybe maybe you're afraid to say no to this person, and you're afraid this person's going to get so depressed they kill themselves or something terrible like that, okay? And so if you're feeling that way, you need to check in because there's something unbalanced about y'all's relationship. Now, if you find that the other person is giving you no indication that you have to do this thing and you're just doing it, you've taken more responsibility than was expected of you, then that's just you doing that. And you probably learned it, and now you're projecting it onto this situation. And so you just need to back up and go, okay, and then just try to figure out how you can back up, maybe go to the person and say, I'm sorry I committed to that. I can't do that, or I can't fully do that, or whatever. But I can very much see the South Node in Scorpio in opposition to the Mercury in Taurus being very much about giving a commitment that you didn't, that is based on like codependent behaviors or something that you don't want to be doing anymore, that you've tried to move away, but you've gotten triggered back in. Sometimes if I get triggered into a codependent commitment, it is because I have a power dynamic with the other person. I'm afraid that that person is not going to love me anymore for whatever reason, whether they've done something or not. Sometimes it just is my projection, and sometimes it's because that person has indicated that their love is conditional. And so you have to really look at the relationship. Has this person given me some reason to believe that this relationship is conditional? That they don't love me anymore if I don't do this thing? Right? So, especially with Neptune still in opposition to Ceres, you can see that other red line going across there, right? See the other one? It's going from Neptune up in Pisces at the top in the 10th house, pointing down to the 4th house with Ceres down there. So not taking care of yourself or having some illusion that keeps you from taking care of yourself. All the while, there is a light colored square that you can see that connects these red lines. You can see them. And that's because this Grand Cross is meant to teach us something. Just like what I talked about with Mars, right? Mars slows us down and makes us go, wait a minute, right? Okay. And slows us down enough that hopefully we can at least take a break, take a breath. Don't engage in that argument. Take a pause, right? The pause button exists for your reaction. I promise it does. Even if you just excuse yourself and go to the bathroom, okay? Take a minute to think. Because if you take a minute to think, you'll be able to engage the kite that will help you learn and master those squares. Because the thing about squares is that they are challenges, and you can see that square going on the outer edges of this Grand Cross, those big red lines that are crossing each other like that. Then you can see like sort of a square that connects them, and those squares mean that you are going to have a major upgrade. You are going to have a major lesson that makes us go, I have a power dynamic with you that doesn't feel right, and I'm not really sure why, but I need to back up. Okay. And so that's like, that's what's happening there. There's a major lesson early in the week. I'm going to say a major lesson.
Yeah. Be mindful, because when there's full moon energy, and by the way, we've talked about this before, but you know that full moons are never a time, if you can avoid scheduling, if you have a choice, let me change it from the negative to the positive. If you have a choice about scheduling things, don't schedule things on on Thursday. If you can lighten your schedule on Thursday, you'll be glad you did. There's just a lot of intensity, and so I really like what you're saying about take a breath, take a moment, think before you decide respond instead of react. Usually, I know for me, I'm always more proud of myself when I respond versus react, because it's just too easy to get shit wrong when you react. And boy, have I done that and been so embarrassed later of like, oops, guess that wasn't at all what I did not get it right. And we've talked before about how, Neptune is been in Pisces for a really long time. It's at home there. And, it's the trying to hear through water, trying to see through water. We know you can't very well. Everything, and it's very easy to misinterpret. And so, I think that's a really good thing. And I love the upgrade energy, because there's a lot of trines and a lot of squares, which means opportunity, opportunity, opportunity. Have you thought about it this way? Have you thought about it that way? Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like it's a funny thing. I was looking at that Grand Cross. Now by the 7th, that Grand Cross is gone. So that's like the 5th and the 6th, which is through that full moon.
Mm-hmm.
The full moon's on the 6th, right?
Yeah, those squares during the full moon.
Right.
The peak of the full moon is like so many squares.
So by the time you get through this little challenge early in the week, which could be quite an intense challenge, you're going to be able to grab onto the kite, because look how much darker the kite has gotten. That's because the aspects are that much tighter. They're that much stronger, okay? And you'll be able to really grab onto it if you've been paying attention. Now, there is an opposition with the moon, and the moon's going to conjunct the south node there. So we're really going to get intuitive. We're going to get really into, oh, shit. Yeah, okay, this is more of that codependent shit I do. Damn. Okay, and then you're just going to move through it really quick, and it's going to be completely in opposition not only to the North Node but to Mercury. So it would be nice if you have a therapist or something like that. If you talk to them on what's that, Good Friday, really?
Mm-hmm.
The 7th is Good Friday. Or if you have somebody that you like in your family that you can talk to, or a friend or something, go out Friday night. It's a great time. I know at the gay clubs, Good Friday's a great time to go out.
It'll be good.
It'll be a good night. It'll be a good night. And you'll have a good time. You'll be able to talk with your friends. You'll be able to really master, maybe outside, like process what's happened to you this week. And then you'll be able to like really see what lesson you are supposed to learn, especially if you stay open to the lesson. Not everything bad that happens to us is just torturing us or trying to drag us through the mud. Sometimes bad things happen to teach us something. You can just choose to take it as a way that, oh, the universe is just kicking me while I'm down or dragging me through the mud or whatever. You can choose that victim mentality, or you can, or you can try to see the lesson in it, see what's trying to bring you forward. And that's what I wanted to show you was on the 7th. You can see the red lines got darker. because those will be that much tighter, so they'll be that much stronger.
Yeah, because on Friday you have that finger of God pointing at the moon with the base being Venus and Neptune. And so, yeah, everything you just said is absolutely the truth. I wouldn't be surprised if you dream of a past life on that night with the moon conjunct the south node, that happens. And the other thing I wanted to say about oppositions that might make it easier to know how to surf it is oppositions, they're axis points, right? So you have one extreme and the other extreme, and the thing to try to do is to be in that middle point, to see if you can find a piece of this and a piece of this that makes sense, that if you work it that way, you'll be back to the kite, you'll be in the middle with everything balanced. And that happens again. The kite happens on Saturday when the moon moves into Scorpio. You have a grand trine with Mars, Saturn, and the moon. You see a theme here. We've had a lot of Mars energy this week. We have a lot of the moon in a lot of aspects, and now Saturn as well. And then you throw in Jupiter in the North Node, and you have that kite again. So when the moon moves into Scorpio, we want to think about our spiritual nature. What is our spiritual nature? Because when the moon combines with Scorpio, that's all about spirituality. Your intuition, your insight, your feeling about something, imagination, can be very emotional, can be ambitious, determined. Moon in Scorpio can also be on the secretive side, can be on the jealous side. Sometimes there can be resentments or obstinance, that kind of vibe. But really, the moon in Scorpio is all about spiritual nature. What is calling you in that direction?
I feel like by Saturday, by the 8th, we'll really be able to tap into what's good for us, even though we're coming up on Easter Sunday, even if that decision is, it is not good for me to be around my family on Easter Sunday. Fuck them and their damn Easter. Okay. I mean, like, seriously, if you come down with that, that's your Venus trine Ceres. Ceres will be in Virgo, and Venus is up in Taurus, so it's very earthy. So you might make a very earthy, grounded decision, and those are going to be really good for you. So I just wanted to point that out, and how some of the Grand Cross and things like this by this day are really starting to unwind and pull out, and things will start to calm down. Things will become a little bit more chill, and it will just be less intense by Saturday, Sunday, which could be really nice for those that do celebrate the holiday.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I just feel like by the time we get to the 9th, it's going to be more calm.
Well, but then, like we said, when we watched it march across, then eventually the moon is opposing Venus on Sunday, and it's also opposing Uranus.
Okay.
The weird spot. So maybe there could be a weird conversation at the family dinner on Easter. Just a warning.
Maybe you find out that you actually have a really cool cousin or something that thinks Easter's a crock shit too. You never know.
Could be. You never know.
I don't know. Or maybe somebody really believes in the Easter Bunny. Okay, I don't know. So, all right, Lacrosse. So, did you have any downloads with your moon or with the animal spirits?
Well, I saw a recurring thing: Mars energy, Mars energy, Mars energy, and the one thing I wanted to, once again, we're going to be into the season of the hawk until about the 19th. So there are many things. Hawks are notorious for their talons can crush up to 150 pounds. Okay. With that being said, this tends to be our talon. So we have to be careful what's coming out, because we can there's one thing grabbing things, like whatever, but if you're too hard, you can really do some damage, and it could be unintentional. And I think that's where caution has to go in the wind, and people have to be really, really careful what's coming out of their mouth, because if they're not, whether it's intentional or not, damage can be done. So that's kind of, because like I said, with all this Mars, and it's probably going to come out of emotion, since when you think about it, it's in Cancer, so it's going to come out, and it's going to come out in emotion, and people have a tendency, oh well, I just felt this, and yeah, you may have felt that, but it still doesn't change the fact that you did damage. So if you are going to use your talent, or you accidentally use your talent by mistake, at least be accountable for it. Don't make excuses for it. Just be upfront with it. So that's what I'm getting. Because
Okay.
the hawk is not it's a no bullshit bird. Okay. It's not going to fly down and say, oh, would you like for me to eat you? No, it's going to
Only
come
if
down to it. Yeah. Yeah.
no, so I was joking.
Yeah. But it is just be aware and be careful with your talent. And if you do hurt somebody, put it where it is and own up to it. And if it was emotions, because most likely that's what it's going to be, own up to that emotion as well.
Yeah, I think that's excellent advice. Like I said, especially with Pluto at play this week, and its power dynamics and things like that. Because for sure, words have a lot to do with power dynamics. So,
Well, we've talked a lot about Mars, so we should say happy birthday to the Aries, and of
Yep.
course, Mars is the ruler of Aries, and so, but with Mars in Cancer, it has to check in with the moon. So wherever the moon is, and we've walked through that this week, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, wherever the moon is having a conversation or having an issue, it's going to call on Mars to help it with whatever action needs to happen. So, yeah, I think we're well rounded in our advice to you this week. I love it. And last but not least, what do the cards have to say, Hollis?
all right. So as I look through the cards and as you listen to this broadcast, please remember that, just take what works for you, take what vibes for you, what resonates for you, and leave the rest, okay? It's probably meant for somebody else, so just let it go. And I have pulled the cards, pulled 3 cards from the Love is Love deck. And first of all, I want to share with you, I think this is what we had in the future from last week.
Thinking that. I think
sure.
so, yeah.
And now it's the past.
And now it's the past.
It's the past card.
Well,
That's so funny.
you had it all in your head. No, I'm only okay. So this is a reminder of how much power and control you actually have over yourself and over your connection and harmonious nature with nature, your harmonious aspects with nature, and how you communicate with nature, and how your mind has more control than you're aware of. And this is very much about being the empress of your own house or your own body or your own room or whatever, however it turns out for you. And that's what this is all about. And interestingly enough, I got a very Mars-based card. And for those of you that do know what the Tower card is, but this is an interesting thing. This is kind of what I was talking about, just because something bad happens doesn't mean that you're being punished or drugged through the mud or anything like that. And this is the Tower card, which is the right now. And so this indicates that things might be falling apart, and things might, or something may have fallen apart. And as it's falling apart, this is a reminder that, first of all, things can be put back together. And second of all, that oftentimes when things fall apart, it's because they're making room for something else. I highly recommend Pema's book, Pema Chodron, When Things Fall Apart. It's a really great book. It will help you understand what I'm talking about. It's a great Buddhist perspective. But this is the Tower card. And so this is very much about when things fall apart. And so maybe something's fallen apart. Maybe something's not going the way you wanted it, but just look for the lesson. What am I supposed to learn from this? When you find yourself super frustrated, keep asking yourself, what am I supposed to learn from this? Because just around the corner is the Lover's card, which I find fascinating, which will push us towards love. Maybe if you're having a disagreement in a relationship, maybe you're meant to learn something from it or have some sort of awakening, and maybe you're supposed to come to an awareness of something new, or maybe something else, some other great relationship or great news is supposed to come out, because that's what this is about love and good news coming out. Or being revealed. Okay, and so that's pretty much what this card is about. It's a Lover's card, and in this deck, it's very much about love being revealed or love being brought out, because as you can see, it's at a Pride March, and it's very LGBTQ, this deck, but I just have a different version, a different way of seeing it. Different decks show the Lover's card in a different way. And this pretty much talks about wow, look at this. Even if it's that you and your partner come to the realization or a deeper understanding of each other through some sort of argument. So be open to the lesson that's going to come through. And remember that you have the wisdom and the power within yourself all the time. That all the time you have the wisdom and power going forward. So even in those darker moments, like during when things are falling apart, yeah, you don't have to fall apart with it. You can allow something to fall apart, watch it fall apart, and then be like, okay, so what am I supposed to learn from this? What is supposed to come of this? And it will be revealed to you. Some sort of love, some sort of connection, some sort of beauty will be revealed to you in a really beautiful way. And that's exactly what this is all about. So by the end of the week, you will have an awakening. So my friends, good luck with that. I'm excited for you all.
Yeah.
I'm excited for this awakening this week.
Hopefully it'll be a nice little revelation you can put in your pocket and save it and apply it.
Yeah, right? And this is how wisdom happens, right?
That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Breakdown that became a breakthrough.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or the thank goodness that thing fell apart, because if it hadn't fallen apart, then this other thing wouldn't have happened. There's lots of ways to look at it, and the wisdom comes when we look back with gratitude for, wouldn't have gotten these muscles without having to do some work, but now that I've got them,
Yeah. And, even some really hard things that I've been through, I've been through some really intense health things where I barely could get out of bed for a couple of years there, for about a year, really. And then it slowly got better, but it felt like more like fibromyalgia, and it was kind of like fibromyalgia. But I'm just saying that I've learned a lot about the brain in that process. I've learned a lot about my own resilience and my ability to shift things. And I've also learned to, when you are sick, to follow your intuition. Because that's exactly what got me the mediums group that I have, that some people are listening to this podcast in. They're also in that mediums group. And I'm just saying that group got so large because of a download I had while I was really, really sick. So, just like if you get something like that while you're sick and you're like, now? Why am I doing that now? Like now? And you're like got a migraine or something. Nah, follow that intuition, because it's probably trying to push you towards awakening, or spirit knows something. So especially if it's something you can do. For me, it was just a matter of making a group, a Facebook group, which doesn't really take that much energy. So, and I did make it, and now it's got 20,000 people in it. So, yeah, it's pretty intense. But I'm just saying that, you just never know where it's going to lead you next. So, regardless of, and I thought during that moment, during those years of being sick, I thought, am I just being drugged through the mud? Am I just being punished? I'm sure we've all felt like that before. So when that's happening, just be aware.
What am I supposed to learn?
What am I supposed to learn, or what's supposed to come of this? It's not that I was supposed to learn to make a mediums group in the middle of it, right? But instead, I was supposed to listen to my intuition.
Exactly.
Even when you're sick.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, my friends,
we wish you the very best.
I hope that your awakening is just mind-blowing. I've had some mind-blowing awakening. I hope yours is really good. So
may you be delightfully surprised, as we say in the Dancing Hippo.
Yeah.
Right? All right, my friends. Well, please like, subscribe, share. Please leave us comments down below. We would love to hear from you. And we appreciate you. And thanks for listening to Soulstrology Rainbow Soul podcast. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this week's Soulstrology and subscribing, liking, sharing, and reviewing. We hope you enjoy this dose of Soulstrology and encourage you to embrace the week ahead with an open mind and heart so that you may integrate the deepest of lessons from the stars. Take a moment to step outside and honor the planets, stars, and moon in the sky with your heart. Integrate the messages that resonate and leave the rest for someone else. We deeply appreciate each and every one of you. Always remember that you are a perfectly unique human with an exclusive star map of your destiny, your soul purpose, and your heart's desire. Thank you again for tuning in to Rainbow Soul.